Since Carrie's also short, I thought I would go ahead and lower it for both of us while we're at it. So anyway, good morning. I think I've already been introduced, but I'm Mary Studzinski, the Executive Director for the Pennsylvania Immigration Resource Center. I should put on my slide. I just went back. Thank you. If you hold it upside down, it seems like it's... Nope. Basic stuff, right? Okay. So PIRC was founded in 1996. Some of you may know the story of the Golden Venture. The Golden Venture was a freighter that ran aground in 1993 filled with Chinese nationals fleeing persecution for the one-child policy, some of them still from the Tiananmen Square in 1989. And they ended up in the York County Prison. And it was during the last years of their prolonged detention at the York County Prison that the Pennsylvania Immigration Resource Center was formed to support access to justice. That's really hard to see. Sorry, I didn't know that we were going to be so far away from it. What this slide talks about is PIRC's response to emergent issues over time. So we were founded in 1996, primarily to serve asylum seekers, and in 2010, we added the legal orientation program, which I'll get into in a second. We also, I'm sorry, it was 2006. 2010, there was a volunteer program that actually Judge Bilcock was very involved in and started that became a program of PIRC in 2010. It's now called the Immigrant Survivors Project. 2018, we launched the Community Defense Project. That was 17. 2018, we launched the Citizenship Project. And this year, we're launching, this month actually, as part of a statewide collaborative of nonprofit organizations, a universal representation project. So I'll go into all of that. But the point of this is that we really have focused on the needs of immigrants, vulnerable immigrants in our society throughout our tenure. Oops. So I'm going to go through the services we provide pretty quickly, but I want to just make a point. On the last slide, there's a way to get hold of us. Immigration law and immigration system can be very confusing. So my bottom line point is, don't hesitate to call us or email us. Honestly, emailing's a little bit better because our phones get pretty busy. But all of that contact information is on the last slide. So if at the end of this you're still not sure exactly who we serve and don't serve, just reach out. Because if we can't provide services, we'll refer you to someone who can. All of our services are free. So in immigration detention at the York County Prison and the Family Detention Center in Berks County, we provide direct representation, legal orientation services, and advocacy. The Legal Orientation Program is a program that provides education to individuals before their first hearing before the immigration court. You may or may not know that there are 3 immigration courts housed within the York County Prison campus. And it is civil detention, not criminal detention. So those are individuals waiting for their immigration hearing against the federal government who is trying to deport them. And so the purpose of their civil detention is to wait for their hearings. What we try to do with our legal orientation program and the first class that we offer is to help people understand how they end up in civil detention, what rights do they have, what rights do they not have, what are some areas of law that may be applicable to them, and is it even possible for them to stay with an existing law. So they go away from that first class hopefully knowing whether they can pursue a form of relief or whether or not they should accept removal. Okay, still. We also provide direct representation to individuals in detention at the York County Prison and the Family Detention Center. 2 individuals, this is not their real names or real photos, but Sarah is an asylum seeker. She fled, her story is real. She fled Somalia after al-Shabaab tried to force her to become the 4th wife of a local leader. And her father was killed in the argument that ensued when the 4 armed men showed up at their house. Her and her mom were also injured. They were told that they would be back the next day to take her, so they fled that night. A lot of times people from countries in Africa will flee through Western Africa, across the ocean to South America and travel up to the southern border. So this is an individual that we found in our general orientation, legal orientation class, who was seeking asylum at the border, didn't have a visa, and was detained, seeking asylum before an immigration judge. Daniel is a small business owner. This is also a true story. The only reason he came to ICE's attention was because he had a traffic ticket. He had a period of unlawful presence, and that was what made him removable. But under current administration policies, there are less priorities, so it's easier to pick someone up for things like a traffic ticket. He had a pending application, which under prior administrations, it was a temporary lawful status and would not have otherwise been picked up. But under current policies, he was picked up, put into detention. We were able to represent him in his bond hearing, have him released on bond. He's back with his family, his 2 young children, so we as a government had decided to detain someone who's a breadwinner and basically put that family in turmoil emotionally and financially. So we were very glad to be able to bond him out and allow him to pursue, he's still in removal proceedings with his hearing in Philadelphia. And his applications for status, which were preliminarily viewed as being approvable, are still pending. Immigrant Survivors Project is a program that, as mentioned earlier, is now statewide. We provide direct representation to all immigrant survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. Our model of service delivery is to go into all of the communities that we serve and partner with domestic violence, sexual assault agencies. So we partner with the YWCA of York, YWCA Hanover here in York County. And we feel really important, a lot of what Tally was saying too, is the whole notion of a continuum of services. So we're looking to partner with the YWCA to be sure that those victims receive victim services from folks at the YWCA. We're providing the immigration legal services. We're also referring to staff at Mid-Penn if there's services that they can help with, and other individuals in the private bar who provide a lot of pro bono assistance for civil legal aid. So we're looking for these individuals to really try to help them with their spectrum of legal services. This little girl is not her real picture or her real name. She is one of 3 children. Her mom lives here in York County, victim of domestic violence, finally had the courage to step forward and ask for help. She was able to leave the abuser, the father of her children. So she and her 3 children now live in the county. She is applying for citizenship, just bought a home last year. So taking someone who is undocumented and a victim and allowing them to have status really is transformative. You may not know that there are many, many families that are considered mixed status families. So you know York County is a very diverse county, right? So we have folks from all over the world that live here. And many families are what they call mixed status families. So one could be a U.S. citizen, another person could be a legal permanent resident, you could have some undocumented members, all in one family unit. So just one impact of that is that when you detain and deport someone, you're impacting an entire family unit, many of whom can be U.S. citizens. That's really impossible to read. So I will basically not go into a lot of detail on this, but the point I want to make with this is that under the current administration, we are fundamentally changing our entire immigration system through executive order or change in regulation without any input from Congress or the public. What impact does that have? One of the executive orders that was issued in January 2017 was called the Interior Enforcement Executive Order. And what it did was it rescinded all prior priorities memorandums that existed before that under President Obama, who we in the industry used to call a deporter-in-chief. So don't misunderstand. There was a lot of deportations that went on before our current administration. But by rescinding those priorities, it allowed Immigration and Customs Enforcement to not have to prioritize individuals who smuggled people into the country or people who were suspected of terrorism or committed serious crimes. So anyone who they had reason to believe could be removable, could be picked up, and not automatically, but reviewed to determine whether or not they were removable. So what's happened is that a lot of folks in the community who have been here for 10, 12 years, who did violate the law by overstaying a visa or entering without one, it's a civil violation. But they've been here for many years, may have a citizen spouse, citizen kids, own a business, pay their taxes, and those folks are now being picked up and put into prison and removed. So what's happening is that with more of ICE reaching into neighborhoods across the county, families are being torn apart. It's really hard to overstate the impact that has on children. When you take a parent away from children and they know that they don't have the opportunity to probably see that parent again unless they go to the country where their parent is, or they move back there because their parents probably not going to be allowed back in the United States. It really has long-lasting impact on children. So I went through that one slide that you couldn't read really quickly. There's been a lot of changes in regulation. There's proposed regulation to change public benefits, SNAP, things like that immigrants are eligible for. There's changes to who's allowed to come into the country. There's changes to even things like accommodations for people when they apply for citizenship. So as a nation, we think we respect the American Disabilities Act, but apparently USCIS chooses to not provide some of those accommodations anymore and requires applicants to have a form basically proving that they should have a medical waiver before providing an accommodation for sight or hearing, things like that. Really creating additional obstacles across the spectrum in our immigration system. And I have so much good news right here. So unfortunately, it's the reality of the situation. So what has PIRC done to respond to this? What we've done is really, as I back with that one step slide that was difficult to read, really trying to come up with programs that help different populations as they become vulnerable. So we provide legal screening clinics in the community, so free legal clinics. We provide increased classes in the prison, we call our legal orientation program. We try to refer as many people as possible to free legal representation if we cannot represent them ourselves. We have launched a citizenship program because unfortunately legal permanent residents are now vulnerable to removal. So we're trying to encourage as many people who are eligible to become citizens. And the last project that I mentioned that is launching this month is universal representation basically says, as was mentioned earlier, you may have the right to attorney, but not at government expense. So what we're trying to do is solve that problem by saying, let's work statewide to raise money to provide basically a public defender for immigrants in removal proceedings, focusing first on the York County Prison. Because the consequence of being removed means that you may never see your family again. You've left behind a family who's devastated emotionally and financially. So we think those consequences are pretty severe and merit having someone stand next to you, because 84% of the people that go to their first hearing aren't represented. It's very difficult to represent yourself through a complicated system. So we're just launching it. It's a pilot program. Next couple of years, we'll see how it goes, and looking to work together in the community to see if we can't raise money for that. You probably can't read that, I just realized. We'll go on. So what do we help with? So I'll just repeat. We help with people who are in detention at the York County Prison. If you are speaking to somebody who knows someone who's in detention, just call us, tell them to call us. We'll add them to a class. There's no special, magic wand that has to be raised. Just ask to have that person put on the list and we add them to a class. If you know of anybody who is you suspect to be a victim of domestic violence, sexual assault, or human trafficking, please refer them to us. Give us a call. Any child immigrant that you suspect has any kind of concerns with their status, please give us a call. And anyone who's seeking to become a citizen, we would love to help them out. So again, I don't know if you can read this, but there's multiple ways to get hold of us. I put down the individual contacts for each of the programs that I mentioned. And really, info, at pirclaw.org is a really simple, easy way to get hold of us. There's someone who looks through that email every single day, and they send the emails off to the people that are also on that sheet and different people in our organization to be sure that they get a response. So I'll be around for questions as part of the question and answer, so thank you.